Texas was once a place where hard work almost guaranteed stability, but today something feels deeply off. Did you know that millions of Texans are working longer hours than ever, yet struggling more than they did a decade ago? Rent is climbing, time is shrinking, and the promise of getting ahead feels like it's quietly slipping away. So what changed? Why does life feel heavier even when you're doing everything right? This isn't just frustration. The data, economic trends, and real-life patterns all point to something bigger happening beneath the surface. And no, this isn't about politics or blame. By the end of this video, you'll understand what's really going on, why so many people feel stuck, and how you can protect your time, focus, and future before the pressure becomes the new normal.
There was a time when Texas stood as a powerful symbol of opportunity, a place where independence wasn't just a mindset, it was a way of life. People came here believing that if you showed up, worked hard, and stayed consistent, life would eventually reward you with stability. A modest home, a dependable job, time for family, and the quiet confidence that tomorrow would be a little better than today. For decades, that belief wasn't naive, it was lived reality. Communities grew around shared effort, neighbors looked out for one another, and progress felt personal rather than distant. You didn't need to chase endless upgrades or compete at an exhausting pace. Hard work had a visible payoff, and that created trust in the system itself. For many, those years still feel close enough to touch. The rhythm of life moved slower, costs felt manageable, and success didn't require constant reinvention. You could build something meaningful without feeling like the ground might disappear beneath you. People believed in upward movement because they could see it in their homes, their careers, and their families. That belief wasn't blind optimism, it was reinforced by experience, repetition, and stability. But slowly, almost quietly, something began to shift. The rules didn't change overnight. There was no announcement, no clear moment when the promise expired. Instead, pressure crept in. Costs rose faster than wages. Time became more scarce. Effort stopped guaranteeing progress. What once felt like a fair exchange, work for security, started to feel unbalanced. Many didn't notice at first because they were still doing what they'd always done, working harder, pushing forward, trusting the process. Yet beneath that familiar rhythm, the foundation was subtly moving. And that's where the story truly begins, not with failure, but with a promise that slowly began to bend. Texas didn't just grow, it exploded. New neighborhoods stretched outward, skylines rose higher, and highways filled faster than anyone expected. On the surface, it looked like success. More people meant more opportunity, more businesses, and more momentum. Growth became the proof that everything was working. But beneath that energy, something subtle began to change. The same growth that once signaled possibility started to quietly reshape daily life, often in ways people didn't notice until the pressure became unavoidable. As more people arrived, competition intensified, not just for jobs, but for housing, time, and peace of mind. Commutes grew longer, rent climbed faster than paychecks, simple errands began to take more effort, more patience, and more planning. What once felt convenient slowly turned into constant friction. Progress, it turned out, came with a hidden cost that wasn't measured in dollars alone. It showed up in stress, fatigue, and the feeling that there was never quite enough room to breathe. The pace of life shifted too. Growth demanded speed. Businesses expected faster output, longer availability, and constant adaptation. The line between work and personal life blurred, especially as technology made it possible to be reachable at all hours. For many, productivity stopped being a tool and became a demand. Even moments of rest carried a quiet sense of guilt, as if slowing down meant falling behind. What made this transformation so difficult was how quietly it happened. There was no single moment where people agreed things had gone too far. Instead, pressure accumulated gradually. A little more traffic, a little less time, a little more stress each year. Growth, once a promise of opportunity, began to feel like a constant test of endurance. And that raises an uncomfortable question worth sitting with. When progress starts costing peace, stability, and time, was the trade-off ever truly worth it? There was a time when money was the main measure of success, but today, time has quietly taken its place. More people are realizing that no amount of income feels satisfying if there's never enough space to breathe, think, or simply be present. Workdays stretch longer, not always because of workload, but because the mind never fully shuts off. Emails, messages, notifications, and expectations follow people long after the workday ends. Even moments meant for rest are often interrupted by mental noise, unfinished tasks, future worries, or the pressure to stay productive. Time, once something we barely noticed, now feels like the rarest resource of all. Research on time scarcity shows that when people feel short on time, their thinking narrows. Decisions become reactive rather than thoughtful. Stress rises, patience drops, and creativity fades. This isn't weakness, it's biology. The brain, under constant time pressure, shifts into survival mode, prioritizing speed over depth. That's why so many people feel busy yet unfulfilled, active but oddly disconnected from their own lives. The hours are full, but the days feel empty. Longer workdays have also blurred the meaning of rest. Being off no longer guarantees recovery when the mind stays switched on. Even leisure can feel rushed, squeezed between obligations. Over time, this creates a quiet exhaustion that sleep alone can't fix. It's not physical tiredness, it's the fatigue of never fully owning your time. What makes this especially challenging is that time loss often goes unnoticed. It disappears in small pieces, a few minutes here, a distraction there, another obligation added without anything being removed. Eventually, people wake up feeling like life is moving fast, yet somehow going nowhere. That's why rethinking how hours are spent matters more than earning more or doing more. Time isn't just a container for life, it is life. And when it's constantly fragmented, even success can start to feel strangely hollow. Attention has quietly become one of the most fought-over resources in modern life, and most people don't even realize how much of it is being taken. Social media doesn't demand your focus loudly, it pulls it away gently, moment by moment. A quick scroll turns into 10 minutes. A notification becomes a mental detour that lingers long after the screen goes dark. Over time, this constant pulling fragments attention, making it harder to stay present, think deeply, or even enjoy simple moments without reaching for a device. This is where attention fatigue begins. It's not about being tired in the traditional sense. It's the exhaustion that comes from constantly shifting focus. The brain isn't designed to jump endlessly between thoughts, images, and emotions at high speed. Each switch uses energy, even when it feels effortless. Eventually, that mental energy runs low, leaving people feeling foggy, irritable, or strangely unmotivated. Tasks that once felt simple begin to feel heavier, not because they're harder, but because attention is already depleted. What makes this especially draining is the emotional layer attached to constant scrolling. Social platforms subtly invite comparison, urgency, and reaction. Even passive viewing can stir stress, self-doubt, or pressure to keep up. Over time, this creates a quiet emotional exhaustion, a sense of being mentally full but never truly satisfied. The mind stays busy, yet rarely feels at rest. Many people don't realize how deeply this pattern shapes their days. Moments of silence feel uncomfortable. Waiting feels like wasted time. Stillness feels unfamiliar. Yet these small pauses are where clarity usually lives. Without them, days blur together, and attention becomes scattered across dozens of tiny fragments. It's worth asking, gently and honestly, how often your focus is truly yours, and how much of it is being borrowed, moment by moment, by the endless pull of the screen. For years, hustle has been sold as the ultimate formula for success. Work harder, sleep less, push through, and eventually, everything will fall into place. It sounds convincing, especially in a culture that praises long hours and constant availability. But for many people, this promise hasn't delivered progress. It's delivered exhaustion. Working more doesn't always move life forward. In many cases, it simply drains the energy needed to think clearly, make good decisions, and enjoy the results of that effort. Burnout rarely arrives all at once. It builds quietly through long days, skipped breaks, and the feeling that slowing down would mean falling behind. People often don't notice it until focus fades, motivation dips, or even simple tasks start to feel overwhelming. It shows up in small moments, rereading the same sentence multiple times, feeling irritated over minor issues, or needing more effort just to stay engaged. These aren't personal failures, they're signs that the system of constant output is demanding more than the mind can sustainably give. Real productivity isn't about doing more, it's about doing what matters with clarity and intention. Studies consistently show that after a certain point, longer hours actually reduce effectiveness. The brain needs pauses to reset, process information, and form better ideas. Without recovery, effort becomes noise rather than progress. Yet many people feel guilty stepping back, as if rest must be earned instead of respected. Reframing rest as a performance tool changes everything. Rest isn't the opposite of productivity, it's what makes productivity possible. Moments of stillness allow focus to sharpen, creativity to return, and decisions to improve. When rest is treated as part of the process rather than a reward, work becomes more sustainable and meaningful. The illusion of hustle fades, replaced by a calmer, more effective rhythm that supports both achievement and well-being. The cost of living has quietly reshaped everyday life in ways that are easy to feel, but hard to fully explain. Housing, groceries, insurance, and basic services continue to climb, while flexibility quietly shrinks. What once felt manageable now requires constant calculation. Many people aren't living beyond their means, they're simply trying to maintain stability in a system that demands more just to stay in place. This pressure doesn't always show up as panic or crisis. More often, it appears as a low-level tension that never fully goes away. Financial stress has a powerful effect on how the mind functions. When money feels tight, attention narrows. Decisions become reactive instead of thoughtful. The brain shifts into protection mode, focusing on immediate concerns rather than long-term clarity. This isn't about poor planning or lack of discipline, it's a natural response to ongoing uncertainty. Even small expenses can begin to feel heavy when there's no breathing room between obligations. What makes this especially challenging is how invisible the pressure can be. Many people continue functioning, working, and showing up, all while carrying a quiet mental load that never fully lifts. This hidden weight drains focus, patience, and emotional energy. Over time, it can shape decisions in subtle ways, avoiding risks, postponing rest, or staying in situations that no longer fit simply because change feels too costly. Awareness is the first step toward regaining control. Not awareness rooted in blame or guilt, but in clarity. Recognizing where pressure truly comes from allows people to separate real needs from constant financial noise. It becomes easier to spot patterns, question automatic choices, and identify which expenses cost more than money, like peace of mind or time. Once those hidden pressure points are visible, they lose some of their power. The goal isn't perfection or instant freedom, but understanding. Because when financial stress is named and understood, it no longer silently shapes every thought and decision from the background. Quiet burnout doesn't announce itself with collapse or chaos. It doesn't always look like exhaustion, tears, or breaking down. Instead, it moves in quietly, blending into daily life so well that many people don't recognize it until it's deeply rooted. You still show up, meet responsibilities, and handle what needs to be done, but something feels dimmer. Motivation fades, enthusiasm softens, and even moments that should feel rewarding seem oddly distant. Life keeps moving, yet emotionally, it feels like you're walking through fog. What makes this kind of burnout so confusing is that it often affects people who are doing everything right. They work hard, stay organized, meet expectations, and rarely complain. On the surface, life looks stable. But inside, there's a growing sense of being stuck, not failing, not succeeding, just maintaining. Progress feels slow or invisible. Energy runs low without a clear reason. The mind keeps asking, why does this feel harder than it should? That question alone can create guilt, especially when nothing appears obviously wrong. Quiet burnout thrives in environments that reward endurance over awareness. When productivity becomes identity, rest starts to feel unnecessary or even undeserved. Emotional needs get postponed. Small stressors stack up quietly. Over time, the nervous system stays in a low-level state of alert, never fully recovering. This isn't weakness, it's a natural response to prolonged pressure without release. The body and mind eventually ask for what they've been missing: space, meaning, and balance. Normalizing this experience is powerful. Many people assume they're alone in feeling this way, when in reality it's becoming increasingly common. Quiet burnout doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It means something important has been ignored for too long. Honest self-reflection allows space to notice patterns without judgment. The moments that drain energy, the habits that no longer serve, the needs that have been quietly sidelined. Awareness doesn't demand immediate change. It simply opens the door to understanding, and sometimes that awareness alone can begin to lift the weight that's been silently carried for far too long.
After recognizing the weight of constant pressure and quiet burnout, the next step isn't to overhaul life overnight. It's to gently take control back, one small choice at a time. Real empowerment doesn't come from drastic changes or perfectly optimized routines. It comes from reclaiming small moments of agency in a world that constantly pulls attention outward. Control begins when you stop reacting to everything and start choosing what deserves your energy. That shift alone can restore a sense of steadiness many people haven't felt in years. One of the most effective habits is creating intentional pauses. This doesn't mean long meditation sessions or strict routines. It can be as simple as starting the day without immediately checking a phone, or giving yourself a few quiet minutes between tasks to mentally reset. These pauses act like mental breathing room, allowing the nervous system to slow down and refocus. Over time, they build awareness, and awareness is what makes choice possible again. Another powerful habit is setting gentle boundaries around attention. This might mean limiting how often you check messages, choosing specific times to engage with news or social media, or reducing background noise that constantly competes for focus. Attention is not unlimited, and where it goes determines how days feel. Protecting it isn't selfish, it's necessary. When attention is managed intentionally, energy begins to return naturally. A third shift involves simplifying routines rather than adding more to them. Complexity often disguises itself as productivity, but simplicity creates consistency. Small, repeatable actions, like walking without distractions, focusing on one task at a time, or ending the day with a brief mental reset, can quietly restore clarity. These habits don't demand perfection. They work precisely because they're easy to maintain. Taking control back doesn't mean controlling everything. It means choosing what deserves your focus and letting the rest fall away. When routines support rather than drain, life begins to feel less reactive and more intentional. In that space, calm replaces urgency, and progress feels steady instead of exhausting.
When researchers study focus, stress, and productivity, a clear pattern keeps emerging. The human brain performs best under conditions of balance, not pressure. Studies across neuroscience and behavioral psychology consistently show that chronic stress narrows attention, weakens memory, and reduces problem-solving ability. When the brain remains in a constant state of alert, it prioritizes short-term survival over long-term thinking. This is why people often feel busy but unproductive. The mind is working hard but not efficiently. Productivity doesn't disappear because of laziness. It fades when the nervous system is overloaded for too long. Research also shows that multitasking is far less effective than most people believe. What feels like efficiency is often rapid task switching, which drains mental energy and increases mistakes. Each switch carries a cognitive cost, even if it lasts only a few seconds. Over time, this constant shifting creates mental fatigue that can't be fixed with caffeine or motivation. The brain simply needs fewer interruptions and more focused blocks of attention to function well. Another important finding is how small behavioral changes can lead to noticeable improvements. Studies on attention and stress regulation show that even brief periods of intentional rest, sometimes just a few minutes, can restore mental clarity. Simple habits like limiting unnecessary notifications, creating short focus windows, or taking intentional pauses between tasks significantly reduce cognitive strain. These changes don't require major lifestyle shifts, yet they often produce outsized benefits. What makes this research especially powerful is its practicality. It doesn't demand perfection or extreme discipline. Instead, it highlights how the brain responds positively to consistency and predictability. When routines support focus rather than fight it, productivity becomes steadier and less exhausting. Stress decreases not because life becomes easier, but because the mind becomes better supported. The most important takeaway is that meaningful improvement doesn't come from doing more, it comes from doing things differently. Small, intentional adjustments can gradually restore clarity, energy, and control. Over time, these subtle shifts compound, proving that real change often begins quietly, one manageable step at a time.
A better path forward begins with redefining what success actually means in modern life. For a long time, success was measured by speed, output, and visible achievement. More hours, more goals, more proof of effort. But that definition no longer fits the world many people are living in today. True success now looks quieter, more personal, and far more sustainable. It's found in clarity rather than chaos, in consistency rather than exhaustion, and in having enough energy left to actually enjoy the life being built. Success is no longer about doing everything. It's about doing what truly matters without losing yourself in the process. Sustainability becomes the foundation of this new path. Instead of pushing until burnout forces a stop, it's about creating a rhythm that can be maintained without constant recovery. That means allowing space for rest without guilt, setting boundaries that protect attention, and accepting that slowing down is sometimes the most productive decision available. Balance doesn't mean perfect harmony every day. It means recognizing when something is draining more than it gives and adjusting before damage sets in. This approach allows progress to feel steady rather than stressful. Clarity plays an equally important role. When distractions are reduced and priorities become simpler, decision-making becomes easier. Life starts to feel less reactive and more intentional. Clarity doesn't remove challenges, it changes how they're experienced. Instead of overwhelm, there's direction. Instead of pressure, there's purpose. This shift helps people move forward with confidence rather than urgency. Most importantly, this path offers hope. Not the kind built on unrealistic promises, but the kind grounded in awareness and choice. It reminds us that life doesn't have to feel like a constant race to be meaningful. There is power in slowing down enough to ask honest questions about how time is being spent and whether it reflects what truly matters. And perhaps the most important question of all quietly lingers beneath everything. If time is the one thing that never comes back, how intentionally are you choosing to spend it? If this message resonated with you, take a moment and share your thoughts below, not just a comment, but a reflection. What part of your life feels like it's quietly asking for more space or clarity? Your voice matters here. If this conversation spoke to you, I invite you to watch our previous video as well. It continues this journey in a powerful way. And if you believe content like this deserves to exist, please support us by subscribing. It's just one click, but it helps us keep creating thoughtful, meaningful videos like this for you.